The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Hello everybody, welcome to the island of Sodor.
Emily the Emerald Engine, Story 4, What's the Matter with Henry? Based on the episode by George Terry. It was the end of a busy day. The engines had all been working hard, but now it was time to rest. They were feeling pleased and proud. Except for Henry. Once again, Henry was feeling ill. "What's the matter with you, Henry?" asked Ethan, a small blue tankard in a mocking tone. "My boiler's grumbling. I can hardly steam," moaned Henry. "Maybe your boiler's grumbling at you," Ethan snickered. Some of the other engines chuckled at this. Henry was very cross. "That's not funny," he hissed. "You just don't care." And he snorted away crossly to sleep in another shed. But Emily saw Henry leave a puddle of water behind. She was worried. The next morning, the Fat Controller arrived at the yards. "Henry, Ethan, I want you to collect some trucks from the coal mines and bring them back to the harbour." "Right on, Gav," called Ethan. The Fat Controller cringed. He didn't appreciate Ethan's casual tone. He turned his attention to the other engines and began giving them their jobs. Ethan puffed away to fill up on coal and water. Henry watched him go. He still didn't feel well at all. "Really useful engines, don't complain," he muttered to himself, and he set off to the coaling plants. Along the way, Henry was leaving water everywhere. Emily saw this as she went by with her stopping train. She was more worried than ever. Just then, Ethan overtook Henry. Come on, hurry up, Henry," he called. "I'm going as fast as I can," Henry chuffed miserably. "Ah, you're just being lazy," Ethan teased as he hurried away. By the time Ethan reached the coaling plants, he had a naughty plan. He spoke to the yard manager. "Oh, please, Governor," he said. "Henry wants to take more trucks. He is bigger after all." The yard manager had no issue with this, and so he agreed. Meanwhile, Emily had finished her stopping train and was being prepared at the platform for her return trip. She noticed the Fat Controller was on the platform, so she called him over and asked him about Henry. "I'm worried about Henry. He keeps leaving behind trails of water," she explained. The Fat Controller sighed. "His tubes are probably leaking. It always seems there's something going on with him. I'll have him checked over later." And with that, he walked away, as if it was settled. Emily was surprised at how nonchalant the Fat Controller was being. She looked over to James, who was waiting at the other platform. "What if something's seriously wrong with Henry?" "Pah," snorted James. "There's always a story with Henry. If it's not his tubes, then it's his firebox. And if it's not his firebox, then it's his gauges. And if it's not his gauges, it's..." But Emily had already puffed away. By the time Henry had reached the coaling plants, Ethan had already left. Henry was very annoyed when he saw the train waiting for him. "Why did Ethan leave me so many trucks?" he moaned. "He knows I'm not feeling well." "We'll still have to take him," sighed his driver. So Henry coupled up, and he slowly pulled the train out of the coal yards. Henry chuffed and puffed and pulled his long line of trucks. "You can do it, Henry," encouraged his driver. But it was no use. Henry ground to a halt. "Oh, pa!" Just then, Emily arrived. She was very surprised to see Henry in the middle of the main line. "Are you okay, Henry?" "No," moaned Henry. "I'm stuck." Emily knew Henry needed help. She looked back at the long line of trucks. Then she looked back at her own rake of coaches. It would be a lot for an engine as old as she was, but Emily didn't care. "I'll help you," she said with confidence. Henry gasped. "Are you sure? What about your passengers?" "I'm sure they won't mind," smiled Emily. So Emily ran round, and her and her coaches were coupled onto the front of Henry. The coaches didn't know what to make of this, neither did the passengers. Emily built up a nice head of steam and heaved the cavalcade down the line towards the harbour. It was hard work. Her rods ached and her big wheels kept on slipping on the rails. But Emily forced on. She wanted to help her friend. The signalman at Tidmouth was rather confused. He had been inspecting Henry's train. He was just about to phone the last signal box when he looked up and dropped the phone in surprise. There was Emily, red in the face. Behind her were 3 coaches, a broken down Henry, and what had to be at least 20 fully loaded coal trucks. He scrambled for the lever and changed the boys leading towards the station. Emily soon reached the station. She smiled as she finally came to a stop. Henry was delighted. "Well done, Emily," he cried. "Well done." The Fat Controller, who had been out enjoying a nice day trip, soon came over. He spoke to the passengers and crew, then addressed the engines. "You were very brave, Henry. You weren't well, but you tried to pull the heavy trucks. That's something to admire. Perhaps I should be less judgmental of your conditions going forward." "Thank you, sir," smiled Henry. He was very proud. Ethan, on the other hand, felt rather ashamed. "I'm really sorry, mate," he said to Henry. "I didn't know that you was really sick. I thought you was faking." "Ethan, go and take Henry's trucks to the harbour now," the Fat Controller said sternly. "Oh yeah, sure thing, Gav. Sir." And Ethan hurried away. "Emily," he began, "I'm very impressed with your work today. What you did showed great determination and kindness. I know many of my other engines wouldn't even attempted what you pulled off today. And for that, you have shown that you are a really useful engine." Emily was too tired to say anything, so she just smiled. "Therefore," the Fat Controller went on, "you shall be greatly rewarded." Emily was excited. She wondered what her reward could be. A few days later, Emily went to the yards. The Fat Controller was there waiting for her. He had a big surprise. "Emily, you may have had a few blips here and there, but overall, you've had a very good first month on my railway," he boomed. "You're not only a hard worker, but you're kind and helpful. Those are qualities that are rewarded on my railway." Emily blushed. "Thank you, sir." Just then, Emily heard a whistle. She looked over and saw Thomas, puffing in with a pair of vintage-looking coaches, painted in the same colours as her. "It gives me great pleasure to present you with your own coaches," smiled the Fat Controller. "Great Northern just like yourself." "This way, I won't have to worry about mine going missing," winked Thomas. Emily was overjoyed. "Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you." Emily loves her coaches. They're named Annabelle and Oti. Annabelle can only carry passengers, while Oti can carry passengers, luggage, and you've guessed it, the guard. Emily takes them on stopping trains to and from Kronk every day. She couldn't be prouder. To her, they were the best coaches on the whole railway. And you'll be pleased to know that Henry was soon mended and was back at work once again. Emily was very pleased to see him. "You're looking much better," she smiled. "Well, they mended my tubes," muttered Henry, "but they didn't even look at my brakes, my gauges, my squeaky wheels." Emily smiled. "All in good time, Henry." "He's ever so grumpy," muttered Oti. "I bet he's strong though," grinned Annabelle. Poor Henry. He'd get his chance soon, but that's another story. One that I reckon you already know.